Hello, I am Grayson Barham and I will be discussing how money controlled Walter's life. I chose Walter from A Raisin in the Sun to describe. Walter wants to change his and his family's circumstance, the circumstance of being poor. He has a dream of opening a liquor business with Willie Harris and Bobo. When Walter brings up his colleague, Ruth refrains and refers to him as a good-for-nothing loudmouth from Scene 1, Act 1. This is the start of Walter's frustration with his wife, Ruth, and eventually leads to his mother and his sister. Walter is a driver for a rich man, and I think this drives him bitter and jealous, leading him to want to take the life insurance from his father's death that is sent to his mom. After any inconvenience, Walter has made a habit of storming out of the house, slamming doors to go have drinks at the bar, which is his version of peace. He has done it so much that Ruth tells him it makes her sick to her stomach for him to go drink himself to death. And his mom explains to him, "Seem like you get into a place where you always tied up in some kind of knot about something. But if anybody asks you about it, you just yell at them and bust out of the house and go out and have a drink somewhere. Walter Lee, people can't live like that." Scene 2, Act 1. This just makes him more angry, and he tells them he has to go off somewhere and be by himself. The whole story so far has been building Walter up to being crazy, and now his family is calling him out on it and asking what's driving him crazy. His response is, "I want so many things that they are driving me kind of crazy." This want for the business and needing his mom's new money is taking a toll on his mental health, affecting all of his relationships, especially his marriage. He says, or his mom says, "Son, how come you talk so much about money?" And Walter's response with intense passion is, "Because it is life, Mama," from Scene 2, Act 1. Walter is so focused on money that he views it as his whole point/purpose in life. This is not a healthy mindset, and I can see why it is driving him crazy. In Act 2, Scene 1, Walter and Benita seem to be getting along and having a good time for the first time all story, dancing and singing African songs together and embracing the culture's costumes and moves. Ruth brings up to Walter not going to work for the last 3 days after receiving a phone call from his boss. He starts mimicking her and making a joke of him skipping out on work because he was so bitter of the rich man that he worked for. From Walter, "Mama, you don't know all the things a man what got leisure can do in this city. What, this Friday night? Well, Wednesday I borrowed Willie Harris's car and I went for a drive. Just me and myself, and I drove way past South Chicago, and I parked the car and I sat and looked at the steel mills all day long. I just sat in the car and looked at them big black chimneys for hours. Then I drove back and I went to the Green Hat. And Thursday I borrowed the car again. I got in it and I pointed it the other way, and I drove the other way for hours way up to Wisconsin, and I looked at the farms. Just drove and looked at the farms. Then I drove back and I went to the Green Hat. And today I didn't get the car. Today I just walked all over the South Side and I looked at the Negroes and they looked at me. And finally I just sat down on the curb at 39th and South Parkway, and I just sat there and watched the Negroes go by." Act 2, Scene 2. See, Walter was envisioning himself as a rich man who didn't have to work anymore based on this business deal he was going to make. Well, his mom ended up trusting him with $6,500 from the life insurance money, and her instructions were $3,000 of it was to be put in Benita's bank account for her medical schooling, and the rest of it was to be put in a bank account for Walter to manage as the man of the house. This was his mom's instructions. A white man showed up as a representative from Clybourne Park, the all-white neighborhood where his mom had just bought a house and they were to be moving in soon, with the intention to buy them out of the house to keep them out of the neighborhood. As the man of the house, Walter stepped up and turned him down and kicked him out of his house. So my perspective of Walter was high and mighty after this scene, but my views was short-lived of him once Bobo showed up and explained what he and Walter did. See, instead of him going to the bank to deposit beneath the school money and the rest of the family's money, he took all $6,500 of it and gave it to Willie Harris for the business investment. Well, Bobo explains that Willie Harris took all of the money and left town, and this action shows how selfish Walter is and a disappointment to his family. After the news, Walter put his emotions on full display. At first, he was defending Willie and coming up with positive ideas of where he had gone or what he had done with the money for their business. Then he circled to accepting that Willie had done him wrong and was so upset. The next day, Walter felt defeated and depressed that he laid in bed all day thinking. He came up with the idea to sell out to the man from the neighborhood committee that he had just rejected and called him back to the house. Well, he then pitched the idea to his family and they shut him down. Well, the man shows up because Walter had already called him, and Walter's mom uses Travis's presence to guilt trip Walter into doing the right thing and turning down the offer to show their pride and respect for themselves. So my key points of Walter was he was an alcoholic. He was always going out to drink, come home and has beer in the fridge to drink in his living room. Walter was a big dreamer. He wanted to open up a business with money he does not have himself. He's a gambler. He's willing to risk all of his mother's money for this business. Another point is he sees money as being life, and he is selfish because he took all and lost all of the family's money on his own personal endeavors. My conclusion and personal reflection after reading and watching this film was, don't let money control you. As you can see in the story, Walter only had his eyes set upon money, and that vision drove him crazy. Noticeably crazy, as said, by his family. It messed up his vision. He lost motivation at his job. He lost sight of his marriage, and it made his judgment so bad that he did not follow his mom's instructions.